All right. So thank you for joining me, Erin. And this is
Good
just
morning.
a little conversation which I'm recording because I think it could be helpful to so many business owners in Lexington. I'm Rebecca Moore, and I'm the founder of In a Nutshell Consulting. I work with female founders to help them grow, guide them in their paths to growth. And I just wanted to introduce you to the new director of the Lexington Chamber of Commerce. Um, Erin, do you want to just to give a quick introduction to yourself and tell us when you started? And you're a brave woman.
Um, well, I started April 15th, I think. So right in the thick of everything that's going on. It's an interesting way to start a new job, that's for sure. I have not met any of the people I actually work with, including you. But I have, Zoom has proved to be invaluable for business now, right? We're all using Zoom every day. So for my background, for the last 5 years, I was on the board of the Bedford Chamber of Commerce. I have had a couple of different entrepreneurial businesses, going back about 7 years now. And I joined the chamber in Burlington and Bedford. My business was in Burlington and I live in Bedford. I got very involved with the Bedford Chamber of Commerce, and I eventually became the president for about 18 months. And I worked really closely with Maureen Sullivan, who was the executive director for a very long time with the chamber. And she recently retired. And over the course of the search for a new executive director, I really saw up close what an executive director does, all the things that Maureen was in charge of that we were going to somehow have to replace. And I looked at that and said, I would like to do those things. Those are interesting things and skills that I think I have. So it just happened, excuse me, this spring, Lexington was looking for an executive director, and I threw my hat in the ring for that. And, here we are.
That's great. Well, I appreciate you not only having the chutzpah to start this job in this particular climate, but also I just really welcome you this morning because I know that we've had several meetings of the Chamber of Commerce to help small businesses address their re-entering, and reopening during the this new phased approach. And I know that you've been on endless webinars. So I thought, well, let's hear from you what you've learned. I know that you were on a call with Secretary Keneally, and you had mentioned a few things. I'm like, gosh, people need to hear this. And specifically, I am hearing from a lot of small businesses that they're just really afraid, and that they're afraid of liability, uncertainty, how to deal with employees and customers who don't comply or who are afraid to come back to work, afraid of lawsuits if somebody gets sick. So that is the big question, or that's the big thing that I wanted to just bring to the table here today. And then also, if you could comment after that on what resources are available on the Chamber of Commerce website and to our community for small businesses. So.
Absolutely. Well, first of all, let me say Secretary Keneally has done a really excellent job making himself available to all of the chambers of commerce, to business associations and trade organizations and all of that. He's been very generous with his time. We have a weekly phone call every Friday that I'll be on this afternoon. Excuse me. And I don't have COVID. I got tested. I promise I'm fine. This is something else. Anyway, I'll be on another phone call this afternoon with him. He gives a weekly briefing, and they're always really, really helpful. So I wanted to say that right up front. I absolutely agree with you that businesses are scared. That's what I hear too. And I think businesses are in a really tough position right now because they had to close when they didn't want to close and lose all this income, lose touch with customers, a lot of uncertainty. And now all of a sudden they're faced with reopening, which has its own new uncertainties. And there's a lot of fear. Like you said, what if something happens? What if someone gets sick after being in my restaurant? What if an employee doesn't want to come back to work? What if a customer refuses to put on a mask? These are all scary topics.
Yep. And also it seems like the onus is on the business owner to self-certify. Maybe you could talk about that. Like, that's a little scary too. Like, how do we get these resources, and what can we, as as a Chamber of Commerce, and also just consultants to small businesses, how can we help provide those resources easier and faster?
You're absolutely right. It's a self-certification process. And so what that means is that the state has published all these regulations. There's a set of mandatory regulations that every business, no matter what industry, has to follow. And that's the basics.
Guidelines.
Sorry?
Are they regulations or guidelines? That's one question that's come up a lot.
I would call them regulations. They are mandatory.
Okay.
So they're the set of, I think it may be called guidelines on the website, but whatever you call it, the word mandatory is there.
Okay.
So that's the first piece of it. And those are the basics, like requiring moving desks 6 feet apart and discouraging congregating in a break room, and those kinds of things.
Right.
Then additionally, the state has, and these are guidelines, they are what the state considers best practices for different industries. So if you're a hair salon, there are certain things you have to do. If you are a bookstore, there are a different set of things you need to do. If you're in manufacturing, it's different. They call them the sector specific guidelines.
And have those been published for every sector now, or are they still rolling out different sectors?
They are still rolling out. The ones they have put out so far are phase 1 businesses. So if you're allowed to open in phase 1, that information is available.
I have a question about that though. Do you think that a lot of them will still apply to phase 2 and 3? So it's worth, if you're phase 2, do you think it's worthwhile to check them out and just tick off all the things that you can do?
So the mandatory stuff is not going to change. And that's absolutely, that's for everyone, and everyone should check it out and be ready with that. Yep.
So
and that includes a checklist. That's part of the self-certification process. There's a checklist to say, I've done this, I've done this, I've done this. I think, in terms of the self-certification, I understand seems scary, like who's making sure that this is happening? And I'm supposed to use my best judgment that I've complied, and then what if somebody determines I didn't down the line? The way I would encourage people to think about it is like any other OSHA regulations. For the most part, we as business owners, we don't have to send anything in to say, yes, I've trained all of my employees in safe lifting practices, or I have trained all my employees about handling biohazard material in the case of an accident in the workplace. These are things that you have to do, but you keep the records on hand, and you're essentially self-certifying on those kinds of policies in the workplace as well. So these mandatory guidelines are very much like that. These are the things I have to do, and I am going to certify that I have done them. There are compliance posters that you can download to display. You're required to display them. And so that's your self-certification. And what I have heard both from Secretary Keneally and from the Massachusetts Development Office is that, especially at the beginning, any infractions will come as the result of a complaint. Okay. So whether that's a customer or an employee saying, I don't think this business has complied, it would arise from a complaint. And depending on the complaint, if it's on the employee side, that would be investigated by the Labor Standards Board. And if it's on the customer side, it would be investigated by the Board of Health.
Okay. Okay. All right. So it's basically anybody should get familiar with the mandatory guidelines and then be on the alert for the sector specific requirements, but take a look at the ones that are already existent for phase one, because probably going to have to do a lot of those as well.
Right.
And then
Right.
everything is downloadable.
Yep.
Right. So what about, there's two other things I want to ask, and then I want to keep this short, and but what about obtaining PPE and hygiene products? Like, how, how do you know that you have the right ones? And how do you know whether you have to have like a medical grade versus just regular? And what about clients? What if a client comes and they don't have PPE? Are you supposed to provide it to them? So
there's no requirement to provide PPE for someone else, whether that's an employee or a customer. As far as I have read, that is my understanding from reading through all these documents. You may require that they have it, but you're not then required to provide it.
I see. I've heard litigation from employees where, this is like big national cases, McDonald's or whatever, that McDonald's didn't supply employees with the right PPE. So I would imagine that as an employer, you should be proactive and have plenty on hand. And that's just cost of doing business in this new world. Maybe it's not a state Massachusetts requirement, but it's smart business.
I think anytime you're in business, as you know, and I know, you have to balance risk versus reward, right? If the likelihood of an individual employee suing and being successful in that lawsuit, especially when this is all a brand new world, is very small. But the cost of these materials is also pretty small, right? So it comes down to the individual risk tolerance of a business owner. If you're very concerned, absolutely have it on hand. There's no reason not to provide it, right? Other than expense. And if you don't have the money to do that, or you don't feel it's your responsibility, which as far as I have read, according to the law, it is not your responsibility, then don't. Just knowing that does open up a certain amount of liability. But we've also, the chamber has participated in webinars with some attorneys as well, employment attorneys, and we have another one today, in fact, to get more information. And those attorneys have assured us that, number one, this whole situation with COVID is being treated completely differently by the EEOC than other workplace violations.
Okay.
Excuse me. So that is one. And the other, so we can't base it off of, some previous lawsuit in a dentist's office where a glove broke and, whatever. That is totally separate from the world that we're in right now, according to the EEOC.
The equal employment opportunity.
Yes, thank you. And the second piece of that is that both Secretary Keneally, I actually asked him directly about liability, and these attorneys as well. It's a member business, Rich May Attorneys at Law. They, both of them have said that if you are doing the best you can, you genuinely believe you have followed the guidelines and you believe that you are in compliance, your liability will be mitigated.
Yep. I guess I just think of it from a customer perspective too. If you have, just a business manager, if you want to have goodwill, with your employees and your customers, I recommend going to great lengths to make sure that all of, you go beyond and be able to provide people with PPE if they need it, whether it's an employee or a customer. I don't know that. I just think that would be.
Well, good customer service never goes out of style, right?
Yeah.
So
anyway, that's just.
People appreciate that. Absolutely. People appreciate that. And that's, that's another challenge that businesses are facing is rebuilding the customer trust and the customer relationship.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I know that you had mentioned there are some wonderful links to buy PPE that the state has vetted. There are also a lot of small businesses around here that are making, I know many boutiques in the area that have, started to provide masks anyway, not the gloves,
Right.
but so support your local businesses that way. So can you just tell us as we wrap up, thank you again for your time, but as we wrap up, tell us about some of the resources that you have provided chamber members, because I loved your email. It just had a great summary. Is that going to be available on the website? And I know you've just started, so there's a lot to be done.
Yes, there are, 200 fires a day to get put out, but no, really, this is top priority, right? That's my job, is to make business owners comfortable and to make the public comfortable doing business with us, right? That's what it comes down to. So I think you're referring to a frequently asked questions that I had in our chamber newsletter this week, and I am going to be posting that on our website. I also already have links to all of the things that we talked about, the state or the sector specific guidelines, the mandatory requirements, etc. That's already on our website. And there's also a link to purchasing PPE and hygiene products. As you said, the state has put together a list. I'll be honest, at first that list was not great. Mm-hmm. But it has expanded over the course of this week. I looked at it literally minutes after Governor Baker's press conference on Monday, and I think there were like 12 companies on the list, and I was not very impressed. But over the course of the week, I've watched that list expand, and you can now, there's a drop-down menu for exactly what you're looking at. N95 masks, surgical masks, other type of masks. They're broken down into categories like that. I know we're wrapping up, but I wanted to just say, to respond to one thing you said. You said people are worried about finding the right things, the right kind of PPE and so forth. What I have heard through these meetings is, number one, surgical grade masks are only necessary for healthcare and should only be used for healthcare. Everyone else can use some other kind of face covering. In fact, the state's language is face covering rather than mask, for that reason.
What about for beauty salons?
Even for that,
really?
Even for that, they're not expecting that they have medical grade. Now, I know the nail salon I went to before all this happened, they always had the paper surgical masks. Anyway, there's nothing wrong with having that higher standard. It helps to reassure your customers, but no one should feel that they must go get that, unless it's a healthcare business. Okay. Similarly, sanitizer, the recommendation is that you get at least 70% alcohol solution sanitizer. Beyond that, liquid versus gel doesn't matter. If it's 70, 75, 80%, 70% and above is sufficient. It isn't like you have to go find 80 or 90% in order to feel better about it. So I don't think anyone, I talked with someone yesterday who was saying, I don't know which sanitizer to buy. No one should make themselves crazy worrying about, is this, as long as you've met that 70% and it's convenient, spray bottle versus a pump versus individual squeeze bottles versus, just do what makes sense for your business and your customers.
Great. Well, Well, thank you so much. I would like to share this. I'll share this recording with you. We can post it on
Yeah,
the
please.
places where fellow business owners would find this beneficial. And would it be okay with you if I share some of the links?
Oh, yes, please.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Cool.
And anyone should feel free to contact me too. Member, non-member, resident of the town, whomever you are.
All right.
Absolutely feel free to reach out. My job is to sit in all of these meetings and gather the information and then try to make sense of it, to turn it around and give back to people who don't have the time to sit and listen to all the information. So,
You know, that's part of why I thought it would be great to just hop on and chat with you. It's super helpful. Erin Sandler-Rathe, thank you so much. Welcome to the Lexington Chamber of Commerce.
thanks, Rebecca.
New executive director, and thanks for your time today. I know you have back-to-back webinars all day.
Don't we all? Yes.
Have a great Memorial Day weekend.
Thank you. You too.
Okay. Bye. Let me just